They laughed at her in school. They mocked her in college. And even when she finally rose to sit on the judge's chair, a police officer spat in her face with words meant to crush her. "You'll always be a ghetto girl in a robe." But this is the story of Judge Amara, the girl who turned insults into her empire. Or, the courtroom was silent that morning, heavy with the weight of judgment. Wooden benches creaked as people shifted, waiting for the young judge to enter. The bailiff's voice rang out, "All rise!" And there she was, Judge Amara, 29 years old, draped in a black robe that seemed almost too large for her small frame. She carried herself with dignity, though inside she still felt the sting of every insult she had ever endured. She took her seat, banged the gavel, and declared, "Court is now in session." But not everyone respected her authority. From the corner, Officer Bradley, a gray-haired policeman with decades of service, leaned back and muttered just loud enough, "Judge? More like a little girl playing dress-up in her mama's gown." The courtroom chuckled softly. Amara froze for half a second. The sting of humiliation swept through her chest, but she didn't flinch. She had learned long ago that when the world laughed, you had two choices: shrink or rise. The case was simple, or at least it should have been. A young black boy, barely 15, was accused of shoplifting. His eyes darted nervously as he sat, hands clenched in his lap. The police report was sloppy, almost careless. Judge Amara looked at it and then at Officer Bradley. "Officer, where is the evidence? Did you obtain fingerprints or review surveillance footage?" she asked firmly. Bradley smirked. "We don't need all that when the suspect already looks guilty." Gasps echoed in the courtroom. Amara's jaw tightened. "Excuse me?" she demanded. Bradley folded his arms, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Come on, Judge, don't play innocent. You know how kids like him turn out. Same as kids like you. Thieves, gangsters, prisoners. You can wear a robe, swing a gavel, but you'll never change the truth." The room went quiet. His words weren't just aimed at the boy. They were aimed at her. And in that silence, old memories surged. Girls in school mocking her hair. Professors doubting her at law school. Landlords sneering at her mother. Every insult came rushing back, each one like a stone in her chest. But instead of crumbling, she straightened her back. Amara stood. Her robe flowed behind her like a shadow, and her voice cut through the tension like steel. "Officer Bradley," she said, "you've worn that badge for 30 years, yet you forgot the first law of justice, innocent until proven guilty. Instead, you bring prejudice into this courtroom. You insult this boy. You insult me. You insult the very justice system you swore to protect." The audience murmured. Bradley sneered. "Don't act so righteous. Everyone knows you came from the slums. Deep down, you're still just a ghetto girl pretending to be powerful." The insult was brutal. A knife aimed directly at her past. Amara felt her throat tighten, but she refused to let it show. She leaned forward, eyes blazing. "You're right," she said. "I was born in the slums. I was mocked. I was told I'd never get this far. But here I stand, Judge Amara, the youngest judge in this state. The same ghetto girl you tried to mock is now the one holding you accountable. My scars don't shame me, officer. They crown me." The courtroom erupted in whispers. The boy on trial looked up for the first time, hope flickering in his eyes. Amara raised her gavel and struck it down hard. This case will be decided by evidence, not prejudice. Officer Bradley, your remarks are on record as misconduct. Court will proceed. The sound of the gavel thundered, silencing the poison of Bradley's words. The higher you climb, the harder they try to pull you down. Judge Amara was about to face the biggest case of her career, a corporate fraud worth millions. But while the world watched her every move, Officer Bradley was quietly setting a trap to end her career and maybe even her freedom. The courthouse was packed that morning. Journalists swarmed the steps, cameras flashing, microphones shoved into every face they could find. Judge Amara, are you ready for this case? Do you think you're too inexperienced to handle it? Some say you're only here because of diversity quotas. Care to comment? Amara pushed through the noise, her robe flowing behind her like armor. She didn't answer. She had learned long ago, silence can be stronger than words. But every question cut her, reopening old wounds. Inside, the courtroom buzzed. This wasn't some petty theft case. This was Titan Corp, a billion-dollar company accused of stealing millions from taxpayers. The defendants were powerful men in expensive suits, smirking like they already owned the courtroom. And there, standing at the witness bench, was Officer Bradley, holding the arrest reports. His eyes met Amara's. He smirked, as if to say, "This is where you'll break." Cha! As the trial began, Amara kept her tone steady. Court is now in session. The defense attorney rose first, a slick man with a silver tongue. Your Honor, with all due respect, this case is far too complex for such youthful hands. Perhaps another judge, someone with more experience, should preside. Laughter rippled through the courtroom. Amara's chest tightened. She could feel all eyes on her, waiting for her to falter. She raised her gavel. This court doesn't run on assumptions about age or gender. It runs on law. And by law, this case stays right here. Her words cracked like lightning. The laughter died instantly. But the enemy wasn't just in the defense's corner, it was in her own. Bradley presented his police report, but something was wrong. The details were messy, timelines blurred, evidence conveniently missing. Amara frowned. Officer Bradley, where is the video footage from the company's security cameras? Bradley shrugged, his voice loud, mocking. Footage went missing, Your Honor. Accidents happen. But hey, maybe you can imagine the evidence, like you imagine being a real judge. Gasps echoed. The insult was direct, sharp, and humiliating. Amara's hands shook under the table. Her throat tightened, but she forced herself to breathe. She struck the gavel. Officer Bradley, this is a court of law. If you cannot present proper evidence, your testimony is weakened. We don't deal in imagination here. We deal in truth. The crowd murmured in approval, but Bradley just smirked. Buh! What Amara didn't know was that Bradley had tampered with the evidence himself. He wanted her to fail, to make her look incompetent, and he wasn't done. That evening, as Amara left the courthouse, a reporter shoved a microphone in her face. Judge Amara? Rumors say you've lost key evidence in the Titan Corp trial. Are you unfit to lead this case? She froze. How did the media already know? Only insiders could have leaked that. And then she saw him, leaning against his squad car, arms folded, watching her. Bradley, smiling. It hit her like a punch to the gut. He's trying to destroy me from the inside. Zzz. At home, she sat in the dark, staring at her notebook. Her mother's picture rested on the desk. Tears slid down her face. "They want me to quit, Mama. They want me humiliated, but I won't give 'em that victory. Not now, not ever." She wrote in her journal, "When they steal your tools, build sharper ones. When they spread lies, build stronger truth." Her eyes burned with determination. She knew the fight was no longer just about one case. It was about her survival. The courtroom was only half the battle. Outside, the media was tearing Judge Amara apart, fueled by whispers from Officer Bradley. And when Bradley made his insult public, Amara realized this was no longer just a case. This was war for her name, her dignity, and her future. The headlines hit the streets like wildfire. Young judge fumbles in fraud case. Evidence lost under Judge Amara's watch. Is she ready or just a diversity token? Amara's hands shook as she flipped through the newspapers on her desk. Every word stabbed her pride. She could hear the laughter of her old classmates, the sneers of her professors, the voices of those who said she'd never belong. And she knew exactly who was behind the leak: Officer Bradley. That afternoon, she walked into the courthouse. Whispers followed her like shadows. Court clerks avoided her eyes. Journalists waited at every turn, their questions sharp as daggers. "Judge Amara, are you covering up for corporate corruption? Did you lose evidence, or were you bribed to throw the case? Do you think your background makes you biased against Titan Corp?" She kept walking, her face calm, but inside her soul screamed. Bradley, on the other hand, was thriving. At a police press conference, cameras flashing, he leaned into the microphone. "With all due respect to the judiciary, we need strong judges, not experiments, not social projects." The reporters laughed, some nodding. Bradley's smirk widened. "Now, I won't name names," he added, eyes glinting, "but some people wearing robes today, they'd still be in the slums if it weren't for charity and quotas. You don't put children in charge of billion-dollar cases." The insult was brutal, public, undeniable. The clip spread online within hours. #UnfitJudge trended on social media. Her inbox flooded with hate. Some messages were simple mockery, others were venom. "You're a disgrace. Step down before you embarrass yourself more. Go back to the slums where you belong." Amara read them in silence, every insult pressing against her chest like a weight. That night, she stood by her apartment window, looking at the city skyline. Neon lights blinked in the darkness, like eyes watching her fail. She whispered, "They think I'm weak. They think I'll bow out." Her hand trembled, but she clenched it into a fist. "No, I'll make them choke on their words. I'll make Bradley regret ever calling me a child." She opened her notebook, the same one she'd carried since she was 14. When the world doubts you, don't argue. Prove them wrong. Let success scream louder than insults. The next day in court, Amara arrived early. Her robe swished around her as she climbed the steps, head high. Inside, the Titan Corp lawyers smirked, already tasting victory. Bradley stood tall, certain she would crumble under the missing evidence. But Amara's eyes burned with fire. "Court is in session," she announced, her voice sharper than ever. She leaned forward, staring at the defense. "Since key evidence is missing, this court will demand independent audits, financial records, and sworn testimonies. If corruption exists, we will expose it, piece by piece. Missing footage does not mean missing truth. The defense lawyer's smile faltered. Bradley's jaw tightened. For the first time, the power shifted back to Amara. That evening, reporters surrounded her again. "Judge Amara, do you have a response to Officer Bradley's comments?" She stopped, looked straight into the cameras. Her voice was steady, but her eyes flashed. "I don't answer insults. I answer with results. And this case will be decided by justice, not prejudice. That's my only comment." The clip went viral, and for the first time, the tide online shifted. People began posting, "Respect to Judge Amara. She handled that with class. Bradley's scared of a strong woman." When insults fail, enemies get dirtier. Officer Bradley had already mocked Judge Amara in public, but now he was ready to destroy her reputation completely. Forged evidence, whispered lies, and betrayal from inside the system. This was no longer about the courtroom, it was about survival. The courtroom lights felt hotter than usual. The Titan Corp trial had dragged on for weeks, and every day the pressure grew heavier on Amara's shoulders. She sat at the bench, flipping through documents, her eyes sharp but tired. Her robe felt heavier too, not from fabric, but from the burden of expectation. Then came the bombshell. The defense attorney rose, holding a folder. His smirk was wide, confident. "Your Honor, new evidence has surfaced. Evidence that proves Titan Corp is innocent and that this entire trial is based on fabricated charges." Murmurs exploded across the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras clicked like machine guns. Amara raised an eyebrow. "Present the evidence." The attorney slid the folder across the table. Inside were photocopies of documents, police reports with her signature at the bottom. Her heart stopped. The reports claimed she had dismissed key evidence weeks earlier, intentionally to push an anti-corporate agenda. Bradley's smirk across the room told her everything she needed to know. Gasps filled the room as the defense attorney pressed on. "Your Honor, this shows you have been biased from the beginning, perhaps unfit to continue this case." Amara's throat tightened. Her name, her credibility, everything was under attack. She slammed the gavel. "These accusations are serious, but this court does not operate on surprise documents. This so-called evidence will be examined thoroughly before consideration." Her voice was strong, but inside, fear gnawed at her bones. She hadn't signed those reports. They were forgeries, and she knew who had placed them in the defense's hands: Officer Bradley. That night, she sat in her office long after everyone had gone home. The courthouse echoed with emptiness. Her journal lay open on the desk. "How do you fight when the enemy wears a badge and carries lies like weapons?" she scribbled. The door creaked. It was her clerk, Maya, a young woman who had always admired Amara. She closed the door softly. "Judge, they're saying things, ugly things, that you forged documents, that you're trying to make a name for yourself by ruining Titan Corp." Amara's heart sank. The lies were spreading faster than truth. Maya leaned closer, whispering, "I heard Bradley talking in the hall earlier. He said he'll finish you off before the case ends. Judge, he's setting you up." Amara's eyes burned. Betrayal stung like fire. But she straightened her back, forcing herself to breathe. "Then we fight," she said quietly. We don't let liars write our story. Pow! The next morning, the media storm was worse than ever. Judge Amara accused of evidence tampering. Police insider claims court bias. Bradley stood outside the courthouse giving statements to reporters. Look, I respect the bench, but some judges rush to power without the discipline needed. If she can't be trusted to handle evidence, then the public deserves answers. It was the perfect smear, delivered with fake politeness. Amara watched the clip later on TV, her jaw clenched, tears threatening to fall. "He won't stop until I'm ruined," she whispered. She picked up her pen and wrote in her journal, "If they frame you, don't beg. Investigate. Expose them. Turn their weapon into their downfall." Her mind raced. There had to be proof. Fingerprints on the forged reports, security cameras catching the leak, something. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just about surviving Bradley's insults. It was about dismantling the machine of corruption he was feeding. That evening, she stood in her mirror, adjusting her robe. Her reflection looked tired, but her eyes were sharper than ever. "They think I'll break," she said softly. "But this is only making me stronger. I won't just defend myself. I'll burn their lies with truth." They forged documents to destroy her. They smeared her name across headlines. But what her enemies didn't realize was this: Judge Amara had been underestimated her whole life, and every insult had made her sharper. Now she was ready to hunt the hunter. The courthouse clock struck midnight. Most judges had gone home hours ago, but Amara sat in her office, her desk covered with files, coffee cups, and the same notebook she had been writing in since she was a child. She stared at the forged reports again. Her signature glared back at her, sloppy and uneven. She whispered, "You tried to copy me, Bradley, but you don't know me well enough." Her penmanship had a unique curve, a sharp flick at the end of every letter. The forgeries missed it. It was small, but it was enough to make her suspicious. The next morning, she met quietly with Maya, her clerk. They spread the documents across the desk. "Maya," Amara said, "look here. The ink's different. The pressure on the paper, too. These weren't signed with my pen. Someone planted these." Maya's eyes widened. "If we can prove this, we can show it's a setup." Amara leaned forward. "And I know exactly who to start with." That afternoon, while the trial paused for recess, Amara visited the records office. Rows of dusty boxes stretched into the distance. The clerk hesitated when he saw her. "Judge, are you sure you should be here?" She smiled faintly. "Don't worry, I'm just double-checking." Her hands trembled as she pulled the logbook. Every time a file was accessed, a signature and fingerprint were recorded. She flipped through, her heart pounding. And there it was, Officer Bradley's name, logged in on the exact day the Titan Corp files went missing. Amara's chest tightened. She had found his fingerprints, not just literally, but legally. That evening, she walked to her car in the dim parking lot. Her heels clicked against the concrete, each step echoing. She felt eyes on her. "Judge!" a voice called. Bradley stepped from the shadows, arms folded. His grin was cold. "You look tired. Maybe the weight of that robe is too heavy, huh?" Amara's pulse raced, but she stood firm. "Funny, I was just looking at the records office today. Seems your name likes to show up where missing evidence happens." For the first time, his smirk faltered. Only for a second, but it was enough. He leaned closer, whispering, Careful, Judge. Dig too deep, and you'll find more than you want. Don't make me remind you that people like me don't lose. Amara met his gaze, steady as steel. No, officer, people like you don't expect to lose. That's why you will. Back at her apartment, Amara opened her journal and wrote, "Every bully leaves fingerprints. You just have to be brave enough to find them." She thought of her mother again, of the girl she once was, mocked, insulted, laughed at. Every memory now felt like training. She whispered to herself, "You prepared me for this, Mama. You taught me how to fight without fists. This is my war." Sss. The next day in court, Amara's voice carried a new weight. She questioned the defense sharply, poking holes in their claims, demanding more records. Each word was fire, each look a warning. Bradley sat in the back, watching, his smirk gone. He tapped his boot nervously, realizing the judge he thought he could break was not bending, she was sharpening. Amara had caught Bradley's fingerprints on the crime. But in the war for truth, one victory never ends the battle. It makes the enemy fight dirtier. And this time, Bradley wasn't coming alone. He had allies, and one of them wore a friendly smile. The city buzzed with whispers. Judge Amara had grown bolder in court, her voice slicing through lies like a blade. Reporters noticed. Some began to call her the unshakable judge. But the higher she climbed, the more dangerous the air became. That morning, Amara walked into her chambers and froze. Her desk drawer was open, files scattered across the floor. Someone had broken in. Maya rushed in behind her. "Judge, what happened?" Amara bent down, her fingers trembling. "They're not stealing, they're searching." She looked at Maya, her eyes heavy with realization. Bradley isn't just scared, he's desperate. By noon, the storm hit. News channels blasted across every screen. Sources claim Judge Amara accepted bribes. Anonymous police leaks questions judge's integrity. Amara's stomach twisted. She hadn't taken a dime. But the public didn't wait for truth. They devoured scandal. She stormed into the courtroom, her robe flowing like a cape of defiance. Reporters shouted questions as she passed. "Judge, did you accept money from Titan Corp's rivals? Are you stepping down from the case?" Her silence was louder than words. "Cheek." Inside, she sat at the bench, her gavel striking harder than usual. But her mind burned with fury. How many lies can one woman endure? As the trial adjourned, she spotted Bradley leaning against the hallway wall. His grin had returned. "Bribery, huh?" he said smoothly. "They'll eat you alive for that. Doesn't even matter if it's true." Amara's teeth clenched. "You planted this." He shrugged. "No comment, Your Honor." That night, Amara met privately with a longtime colleague, Judge Patel. He had mentored her when she was young, guiding her through law school struggles. "Amara," he said gently, "I've always believed in you. But this fight, it's consuming you. Step back before you destroy yourself." She stared at him, hurt. "You think I took bribes too?" Patel's eyes dropped. Silence was louder than an answer. Amara's chest tightened. Even he doubted her. The betrayal stung deeper than Bradley's insults ever had. Whew. Later, alone in her apartment, she paced like a caged lion. The walls felt too small for her anger. She opened her journal and pressed the pen so hard it almost tore the page. They want me silent. They want me broken. But every lie proves I'm closer to the truth. Betrayal doesn't weaken me. It strips away my illusions. I stand alone, and that is my power." Her tears blurred the ink, but she kept writing until her hand cramped. W. The next day in court, Bradley's allies made their move. A police witness, one she had trusted, suddenly changed his testimony, claiming Amara pressured him to testify against Titan Corp. Gasps filled the courtroom. The defense attorney smirked like a wolf. Amara's voice thundered, "This is perjury! This is intimidation!" But deep inside, her heart cracked. A man she trusted had become another knife in her back. Still, she refused to bow. Her gavel slammed down. "This court will not be turned into a circus of lies. The truth will be uncovered, no matter how many shadows you hide in." Her glare locked with Bradley's. For the first time, he looked unsettled. That night, she stood before her mirror again. The same tired eyes, the same robe. But something new glowed inside her. Not just determination, but fire. "They can smear me, they can betray me, but they can't erase me," she whispered. "I am not just fighting for myself. I'm fighting for every girl they ever told wasn't good enough. They smeared her name. They forged her signature. They even turned her friends into knives at her back. But Judge Amara had one thing her enemies never understood. When the world tried to bury her, they forgot she was a seed, and seeds grow into giants." The courthouse was packed like never before. Reporters filled every corner, cameras stacked on tripods, the air heavy with tension. Everyone whispered the same question: would Judge Amara fall today? But as she entered, her robe flowing behind her, there was no fear in her eyes, only fire. She had spent nights gathering proof, days studying every lie, and hours tracing the fingerprints of betrayal. Today, she wasn't just defending herself. She was on the attack. The defense lawyer rose first, smug as ever. "Your Honor, with the new testimony and the allegations of bribery, we must demand your recusal from this case." Murmurs rippled. All eyes turned to Amara. She didn't flinch. Instead, she lifted a folder from her bench and tapped it gently. "Before this court considers your demand, I have evidence to present." The room went still. She rose to her feet, voice steady. "These documents, authenticated by independent handwriting experts, prove that the so-called reports with my signature were forged. Not only forged, but traced directly to Officer Bradley's login in the records office." Gasps. Reporters scribbled furiously. The defense attorney stammered, "Objection!" "Overruled!" Amara thundered, slamming her gavel. She continued, her voice cutting like a blade. "And here are security camera images, time-stamped, showing Bradley entering the records room after hours. He thought no one would check. He was wrong." The courtroom erupted. Bradley shifted in his seat, his smirk gone, replaced by a clenched jaw. Amara's eyes locked on him. "You tried to silence me with lies. You tried to bury me under your corruption. But every time you struck, you made me stronger. Today, this court sees the truth." The defense attorney sputtered, "This doesn't—" "It does," Amara cut in sharply, "because when an officer of the law manipulates evidence, the foundation of justice cracks. and I will not allow this court or this city to crumble under corruption."
Bradley stood abruptly, fists tight. "You think this makes you untouchable?" Amara leaned forward, her voice calm but lethal.
"No, it makes me unstoppable." The bailiffs moved closer, ready in case Bradley exploded. The camera zoomed in, catching every flicker of fear on his face. By the end of the day, the jury didn't just side against Titan Corp., they demanded a full investigation into Bradley's conduct. Reporters swarmed outside, shouting questions as Amara left the courthouse. "Judge Amara, how does it feel to clear your name? Do you think Bradley will face charges? Will you step down after all this?" Amara paused on the courthouse steps, looking out at the sea of microphones and flashing lights. Her voice carried over the crowd. "I was insulted, mocked, and smeared, but I refused to bow. Let this be a message. No matter how many lies they throw at you, truth still has a voice, and I will always speak it." Weeks later, the headlines told a different story. Judge Amara clears her name. Officer Bradley suspended pending trial. From slums to the bench, the woman who wouldn't break. Investors and activists reached out, offering support. Her story went global. Book deals, speaking tours, even opportunities in business poured in. Amara didn't just restore her reputation, she built an empire. The insults that once cut her became the bricks of her success. The betrayal that tried to break her became her armor. And in time, Judge Amara wasn't just a symbol of justice. She became a billionaire philanthropist, funding schools, law scholarships, and shelters for girls who were told they'd never be enough. Late one night, she sat in her office, her journal open. She wrote the final line on the last page. "They tried to write my ending with lies, but I took the pen back and wrote my beginning." She closed the book, smiling. The gavel of her past had become the crown of her future.